Hi, I'm your host, Larry Smith, and you're listening to Speak Out Podcast, a community outreach of the Lawrence County Career Technical Center in Moulton, Alabama. Today, my co-host is Samara Williams, a junior at Lawrence County High School and a student at the Lawrence County Career Technical Center in Mrs. Bennett's Salon and Spa Management Program. Hi, Samara. Let's welcome our guest to the show.
Hi, Larry. We are excited to introduce our guest for the podcast, Mr. Marcus Echols.
Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Echols.
Thank you guys for having me on.
Marcus Echols is a 1989 graduate of Lawrence County High School and was the first African-American chairman of the Lawrence County Democratic Party. A resident of Lawrence County, he was runner-up for Lawrence County Citizen of the Year in 2017. Mr. Echols studied sociology at Athens State University, and it was while attending a creative writing class at Alabama A&M University that he first became interested in volunteerism. He has had an interesting variety of work experiences, and in retirement, Mr. Echols, with the help of his sister and Byler Road Church of Christ, started a food pantry and soup kitchen right here in Lawrence County. Okay, let's get started. Mr. Echols, your bio mentions that you studied sociology in college. How did you become interested in that?
Well, I actually, like this young lady here, it was my 11th grade year, and we were going into the summer vacation. And I was walking down the hall with some buddies, you know, it's May, we're cutting up, we're not thinking about school, it was about to be summer. And Mrs. Robinson just come out of nowhere and just like grabbed me by the arm, not hard, she just stopped me from my group. And this sort of like shocked me because she was this teacher, everybody knows she didn't play in her class. And she was one of those teachers who always stood outside of her class watching the hallways. Mm-hmm. And so I walked by and she grabbed me and I was sort of like shocked, I froze, you know, and I looked at her like, what is this? And she said, Marcus, there's a class coming to Lawrence County High School next year and I think it'll be a perfect fit for you. It's called sociology. And I looked at her and I was like, okay. I didn't think nothing else about it. And I went on about my friends, didn't think nothing about it the whole entire summer. So when I got back in the 12th grade and I had a chance to take the class, for some reason, I just hopped in it. And she was thrilled. I never saw this lady happy that much. She was one of those tough teachers, didn't smile that much, but she was happy that I was in that class. And so the class was fun and I liked it and I took to it. I did great in the class. And so when I went off to college and I had to sign up, I signed up for that, not knowing that I would be so passionate about it, and sociology became the basis of almost everything that I do. It's in every facet of everything that I do. And I really hate I never got a chance to thank Mrs. Robinson because I'm still doing this today. Since 1989, you know, I'm still doing sociology and things related to it. It's been with me all my life.
Your calling.
Yes, and she saw it in me. It relates to some other questions y'all might ask about what teachers and things and parents can do. One thing students can do is listen to your teachers. Right. This lady was noticing me and noticing that I fit that profile, that I could be, you know, a good sociologist, and she was right on the money.
Yeah, that's a good teacher for you.
Yes, yes.
How did your college experience motivate you to start the food pantry in our county?
Okay, in college, just like in high school, I wrote poetry. I always wrote poetry in secret. Even when I was being a knucklehead, tough guy, bad student, I wrote poetry in secret. My parents didn't even know. And so Miss Montgomery was having a contest, Miss Laura Montgomery was having a contest after the Challenger had blown up. And I wrote a poem. I thought it was the best. I thought I should have won. But I was doing that, so I was always into poetry. So in college, I took a creative writing class with Dr. Virginia Gilbert. She's been state poet laureate a couple of times in Alabama. And so we'd taken this class, very great class we took off campus at Barnes & Noble. So she said, how would y'all guys like to participate in the Writers' Harvest? And I was like, what is the Writers' Harvest? Every November, the teachers in the English department of Alabama A&M would raise money for the North Alabama Food Bank. And so performers would come up and perform their poetry or read poetry. And so I got involved in that, and it was real fun, and we was raising money for the North Alabama Food Bank. So once I retired and came back to Lawrence County, I was looking for something to do, and I said, I had this relationship with North Alabama Food Bank, so let me reach out through my church to start a food pantry.
Well, your information also tells us about a nonprofit that you established to support at-risk youth and their families. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, it's called Empowering Strategies, and I incorporated everything I learned from sociology. And I also used to be the supervisor at Three Springs Residential Treatment Center in Cortland, now called Sequel. I was the second shift supervisor. And so I had formulated a plan that what these kids really need in Lawrence County and everywhere is constant contact. Boys and girls clubs and these other things, they're great, they're terrific, but just seeing a kid on the weekend or once a month, that's not going to cut it. We need the constant contact during hours where these kids are most at risk of doing drugs, having sex, or whatever. We need someone that can be on the scene from the hours of 11 o'clock at night to 2 or 3 in the morning, where they're most challenging at, and during holidays when the school system is out, and I just didn't see that. So I started that, and I also worked with my sister, because a lot of these families who have, you know, at-risk kids, things going on, they're also food insecure as well.
Right.
Tell us more about your interest and involvement in the arts.
Well, in the arts, I used to love doing spoken word poetry, just off of your head. Sometimes they would play the music and you have to go to the music, or someone would give a word and you'd have to take off. I love that instant poetry like that. And I used to perform at Oakwood and other colleges with friends and stuff. They really got me into it. I was more of a political person, but my best friend was more of a performing arts. So we made this exchange. I'll help you if you help me. I wanted in with the performing arts community because, in my opinion, to this day, they have the best networking system, because they all perform at different places. They can tell each other. They network like anybody I've never seen. So I incorporated some of them guys to help me out in what I was doing, and they drug me into writing poetry. And I published a book in 2005 on lulu.com. It was just different flashes of my work. You know, I had part of a short story in there, my poetry, you know, things like that.
Are you still writing?
Yes.
And are you musical as well?
I can't play, but I love to listen to it. I look at things like the tones, all tones, like violins. You know, they play this high tone music to kids and babies when they're infants. We need to listen to that as adults throughout our lifetimes, because it activates certain parts of the brain to keep you stimulated. So music is great. I love music, but I'm not actually. I always wanted to play the piano.
Well, with your poetry, I'm kind of getting off our questions here, but with your poetry, what inspires you to write something, a piece of poetry?
It could be anything, sort of just like a music writer. It could be a bad relationship. It could be something that a lot of times for me, it's something that I've seen in nature, because I'm a country boy. You know, I see something in nature or hear a sound or something, and that sort of like triggers it.
Yeah. Well, what were your most enjoyable and challenging jobs that you've had?
I believe my most enjoyable would probably be at Alabama A&M University, where I went to school and retired. I was a residential manager too, and I was over a foster complex, which is a dorm of 600 kids.
Man.
And I worked third shift in that dorm for like 7 years. But that was the most enjoyable, because there's so many dynamics going on, you know, and I got to work around, you know, the athletic teams. I was an athlete in high school, so it kind of felt like normal. I could reach the kids in a certain way better, because I was an athlete also as well, and that was real fun. Probably the most challenging was Sequel down in Cortland. You know, it's just, you know, it's sad, and it's good that somebody's doing the job. But we have a lot of troubled kids out there who need some specialty work.
Well, you know, I was involved a little bit in testing, you know, bringing the Sequel kids here to test, and they just seem like that they need somebody to listen to them.
Right.
Maybe. Or something.
Right. They need somebody to listen to them.
You've worked in a lot of situations that involved working with people. What can students and adults do to reduce stress and improve their interaction with others?
One thing you do is let people be themselves. If you let a person be themselves and respect their opinion, that solves almost everything. And then you can get to the real meat of the situation, which is like in sociology. You know, so sociology involves different parts of organizations or groups of people working together as a unit, if you can get these small things out about how somebody's dressing, somebody's personal lifestyle, the color or whatever, or what house they live in, their clothes, if you can get that small stuff out of the way, whatever you're involved in is going to function a whole lot better.
Well, what can students do in high school to prepare for a successful career?
It goes back to the thing I said earlier too, which is listen to parents and teachers, because I don't know what it was that made me take that class, but she saw something in me and she let me know about it. And I want these students to know, when a teacher says something to you about your future, they're not saying something just to say it.
Yeah.
And we as parents and teachers have to realize that they're not only rebelling in the stages of relationships, the teenage years, they're also rebelling against advice.
Right.
So we have to know that this advice is not going to be received. And I saw an example of that this year when I brought my daughter back to Lawrence County School. I saw a teacher out there. She was, recruiting or telling people about college. Some of these high school students did not even want to hear it. That was the furthest thing on their mind. A lot of them was like, right. I don't know yet. They were unsure. And I understand a lot are unsure going into the 12th grade. But I have learned and seen, even from my own situation of graduating, the people I graduated with who knew where they were going by the 12th grade, who had a plan, those are the people who are the most successful today. So right. I wish kids would listen sooner to teachers and parents and be prepared. When you go in that 12th grade year, you should already know, I just need to knock this out, and I'm going over here, and I'm going to pursue this.
Good advice.
What were your favorite subjects in high school and college, and how did they influence your choices?
In high school, it probably was English, because I was writing secretly. Even at home, they'd go, what you doing in there? And I'd put it up right quick. I don't want nobody to see my writing. It was English. And then the 11th grade, when I got into the 12th grade, it was sociology. Sociology took over. It took over in my life after the 12th grade. But before that was English. And then when I got to college, it was still sociology, but it was journalism. And I've been a member of the media and a journalist for over 23 years.
Really?
Yes, and I was the editor of the campus newspaper at Alabama A&M University, as well as the president of the Sociology and Criminal Justice Club at Alabama A&M.
Well, who is your mentor? Do you have a mentor, and why?
I would say the first person, this person didn't mentor me, but they steered me into the right direction. The first one was Cedric Fuller, and he worked at Alabama A&M University. Like I said, when I first started working there, I was a 9-month contract employee. So when the students went home, I was laid off. And I would pick up different jobs of stuff like that during those 3. And one summer, I didn't feel like doing that. And so I asked my boss, we call them Count. I said, what can I do this summer? I said, I don't want to work these old jobs, because I was working for All Needs, putting up slides and stuff for kids. But anyway, he said, you ought to think about politics. There's some stuff you could do in politics. And I was like, politics? And he was like, yeah. And I said, well, okay. He steered me in the direction of this lady named Pam Miles. And she was real close with the former governor, Don Siegelman. And so I got linked up with them, and Pam became my mentor after Cedric Fuller introduced me to Pam. And then I met Parker Griffith, who really has been my mentor for 20-something years probably. And he's probably I like Pam because she's a little short lady and she's real tough, very tough. So that's where I get my bulldogging is from Pam. But Parker Griffin has always been a good mentor and has given me solid advice even when I did not agree with it. And that's the kind of mentor you want.
It's amazing how life leads you to people like that.
Right.
Many of your experience requires leadership qualities like taking initiative and communication. What can young people do to improve their leadership skills?
To take action. They can research and take action. We all can go down the road, and if you see somebody walking there with no shoes and you got 10 pairs of shoes at home, if you go home and you get a pair of shoes, get that person some shoes, then you are a leader. And if you tell someone else to do better, you're a leader. If you're telling people how to improve themselves or you're taking action, you're the leader. And you don't have to wait on anybody else. There's a lot of things out here that needs to be done. You just have to take action.
Well, what motivates you to continue helping people, what you're doing now that you're retired?
I guess when I had retired, I had plans on moving out of the state and taking another job in New York. That didn't work out. I didn't like that cold. Maybe I visited at the wrong time of the year. But when I came back, it was kind of out of boredom and stuff like that. And then I said, well, I'm just gonna go back to work because I was just too bored, and I had a heart attack, and I ended up with 3 stents, and they told me not to work anymore. So I had to think for a while what was I going to do. A heart attack happened in 16, so at the end of 16, I said I'm going to start a nonprofit focusing on the skills that I have, which is working with youth and adolescent youth, especially troubled youth. So it was kind of out of boredom, and I saw the need, just like we were saying about what can young people do. I saw a need. I had worked with the food bank in Huntsville all those years through the college, and I said, let me check Lawrence County, and I found out there was a lot of need, and we're in Lawrence County is in a 4-county area that has been identified as severely food insufficient. So when I saw that, it relates to what I do. I already had this established relationship, so we got that food pantry up and off the ground real fast. And now my sister is taking it to another level by serving hot food.
Now, didn't y'all have more than one location of the food pantry at one time, or am I just imagining that I read that a few years ago?
This is our 3rd location, really. We started at Ballard Road Church of Christ. That's where we first started at. And then we moved out to Shoals Creek Plaza, out on 24, and I can tell you a story about that. We had a food pantry and a thrift store. After I retired from A&M, they had a situation where they didn't want the employees to get the things that students throw away, and students throw away a tremendous amount of stuff. I used to pack it up and give it to people to send overseas. And so I started getting the things since nobody could, and we used those donated goods in the thrift store to pay for our bill at the food pantry.
Wow.
So it's basically paid for itself for the past 5 years.
Wow, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
What is your next project, if you plan to have any?
My next project is getting my nonprofit more mainstream, getting the public more involved. When I started with a guy who graduated from Lawrence County, and I'm gonna give him a shout out, Bill Chitwood. He was one of the probably smartest men I've ever known. I mean, we've debated and talked on the radio so many times, and I told him I would have to interview him 8 times to really prick his brain. He's got degrees in psychiatry, counseling youth and old, and we wanted to do this thing together, but related to what you were saying earlier, Bill is now something big with Birmingham and Tuscaloosa performing arts. So he's doing film and all that. Me and him have talked about going around the county and getting video of people who were during the civil rights or during some of these, or who were living during some of these disasters. Because like some of these tornadoes that killed a lot of people, or one time I think they said in Lawrence County the water could nobody drink it. Wow. And so we want to go back and talk to some of these people who have lived through some of these hard times in Lawrence County and sort of put that into some type of record.
That's a great idea. What would you most like for people to know about you?
Probably the same thing that people tell me when they ask somebody like a Parker Griffin about me. They say Marcus loves to help people. He cares about people, and that's really my passion. I cannot know somebody is hurting and something is wrong. I want to try to help them solve it. If somebody call me and say their light's about to go out, I'm gonna get out my book and I'm gonna say and give them all the resources and try to get them help. So, and your greatest passion can also be your greatest weakness. So sometimes I do just like shut down for maybe a week or two. I'm not going to be answering any requests because I get requests all the time. And just like with the soup kitchen, if somebody called 9, 10 o'clock at night, got kids, don't have any food, I've been getting up at all hours of the night. Right. So I had to eventually, for my own, well-being, I had to say, hey, these are the hours, get there. Now, we have 1 or 2 people we know that are homebound, and we try to deliver to those. But we're not a delivery service, which we want to get to eventually. And you talking about some of the projects we're talking about on the soup kitchen side, we're talking about getting some type of van or truck where maybe we can show up in Hatton or like we did in Cortland. We bought 1,000 pounds of food to Cortland, and really that was nothing for us to do except for the logistics. We got to have the truck to get it there, have people there prepared to get it, because if we're picking up food from Huntsville frozen, we're coming back in in about an hour or so, someone needs to get that food and get it to a freezer themselves. So we look forward in the future of doing that at our next location. We did it in South Cortland. And we plan on doing it in other places.
What advice would you give to your students who are looking for volunteer opportunities in our community?
Well, you can reach out to, churches usually have, a lot of churches work with doing things in the community to help people, and people can always reach out to us. We always need help. We always need help at the soup kitchen. We always need help. If it's nothing other than moving stuff around, now we do a drive-through situation. We don't have people come in, so we have people out going out to cars and handing it to them like that.
And that's a pandemic thing? Is that since the pandemic? Or
we sort of started like that, and we kept going because we were lucky. We never stopped during the pandemic. We stopped having people come in, but we were lucky. We only had one person who came down with COVID, and I think she had got it from somewhere else. So we sort of don't want to get back into that now, but we really miss that. And we also miss the Bill Stewart Center. Their people used to come out, and they were so much fun, and they loved to help. And when I see them around town, they still remember me. So we hope we would get to a point where we would do that.
Well, Marcus Echols, thank you for being with us on Speak Out today.
Thank you guys for having me.
And Samara, thank you for being my co-host
Thank
today.
you for having me.
You have been listening to Speak Out Podcast, the community outreach of the Lawrence County Career Technical Center in Moulton, Alabama. I'm your host, Larry Smith, and I'd like to thank my co-host, Samara Williams, and our guest for today, Mr. Marcus Echols. Please check out our podcast on the Lawrence County Career Technical School website, and we hope that you'll join us for future episodes.